Hey, everybody. I'm not sure if we're on the screen just yet, but I've got a great guest, and I'm going to just sort of start, though, right now and introduce this show. I'm here with a really wonderful friend of mine, Mournian, and we're really going to get into some intense discussion about timelines and like a multidimensional reality briefing. And he's going to explain, what this title means to him. But I mean, the thing is, we have to understand that we're dealing with a lot more than what we are presented with. And of course, we're all processing it in our own ways. But before I read his bio, I first want to thank you so much, Matthew, for joining me today.
Oh, Lord, thank you for asking me to be here. It's truly an honor, Laura. Yeah, thank you.
Oh, yeah. And it's been a while since we've done something together. And I don't know, many of you probably are familiar with the last interview we did, which was excellent. But yeah, we've been doing conferences together and navigating this craziness as friends and colleagues for a number of years. And so it's always amazing to hear what you have to share. So I'm going to read a little bit about him, and then I'm going to share about My Patriot Supply, because it's so important that people know that this product is out there, especially with the gas shortages and all the madness going on and the unpredictability of the world. So I'm going to share that as well. And then we're going to dive into the questions and go real deep. So hold on one second. And he's very fascinating level of really unique intelligence, I have to say. But okay, Aaron Mournian is a professional psychic reader and intuitive healer specializing in the release and removal of negative energetic manifestation from the body. Things like NTT attachments, astral parasites, implantation, and many other strange phenomena that are often completely misunderstood in our modern day world. His current mission is to assist with healing the human body and our collective consciousness through the activation of the expanding multidimensional intuitive healing abilities that exist within each of us. Matthew's daily practice follows a multi-part protocol of multidimensional tarot, spirit guide consultation, elements of traditional Chinese medicine, and then direct transmission of multidimensional energy using an extraterrestrial healing modality known as scalar toning to release a variety of physical, emotional, and energetic maladies from the body. There's more to share, and he can go into that. And I just want to jump into these questions, but I mean, there's so much here. And I mean, this seems to be like the most unbelievable sort of antidote in medicine that a person could be tapping into, because it considers the whole being instead of just the physical symptoms. And it's crazy seeing, what we're dealing with the medical industry, and we're going to be careful of the words that we choose. But I kind of just want to start off asking, I was going to read a little bit about My Patriot Supply. Oh gosh, you guys, if you don't mind, real quick. But one of the first questions I do want to ask you is about, what this kind of title means to you. And then lots of
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, feel free if you want to do your intro thing for the supply thing first, and then I'll answer that if you want, or I can just roll right into it. What do you think?
Oh yeah, I'll just do this real quick, and I have it on the screen.
Makes total sense. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so thanks everybody. I mean, it's just really important that we know something like this is available for people that aren't very prepared or are shocked at the acceleration of challenging energies that make it very difficult to have the resources that we need. So friends, aren't you ready for to get back to normal? I mean, is that possible? I know just the concerns about food and resources is the kind of normal I'm kind of talking about. But there's one thing none of us can afford to ignore, which is the fact that another crisis can happen at any time without warning. And it's important that we have peace of mind, and knowing you're prepared in advance for whatever happens is where a lot of peace of mind can come from. So one has to ask themselves, do you have enough food, water, and emergency supplies to get you through the next time? If not, you need to check out My Patriot Supply. They're America's leading preparedness company, and they'll help you become happy and self-reliant. Their mission is your survival. Their food is delicious too. I am a person that purchases it. I got quite a bit of it myself, and it stays fresh for up to 25 years. So it will be there when you need it. You won't have to worry if something bad happens. You'll be well prepared. You won't have to worry about standing in food lines or, just dealing with the madness that goes on when food shortages happen. Their food is delicious, like I said, and order today and your food will be delivered in 2 to 3 days. And it's true. I ordered it and I couldn't believe how quickly it arrived. So go to preparewithcosmicgaia.com right now and do what you know you need to do. And that's cosmicgaia.com. That's preparewithcosmicgaia.com. Actually, the link is in the description and you can just look at what they've got. And, you know, ads are a tough one for me, but when I know it's important and I believe in it and it's worked for me, I just want to share that information because we all want to get through these times and we don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. And I feel a lot more sense of security just being prepared. And I've been preparing for actually a long time for these times before I even came across this company. But anyway, thanks, Matthew, for letting me just share that.
Absolutely.
But so, yeah, let's jump in. Like, what does this title mean to you? I mean, sometimes people get a little lost in the words timeline. I mean, I think timeline's pretty obvious, but multidimensional reality, like, and these briefings, like, what does it kind of mean to you? And what kind of download or thing is coming through?
Yeah, thank you. I would say first off, when we look at kind of like a lot of the new age buzzwords and spiritual ascension terminology right now, there's just like an incredible amount of uncertainty. There's all kinds of labels that are getting thrown around. As we know, a few years ago, intuitive empath was a very common one. And as we go through this ascension or awakening or dimensional shift process, we come to, I guess, just greater levels of awareness of the depth and what we could even say the dimensional quality of human consciousness. And so when I talk about, I guess, the role of a multidimensional healer or a multidimensional intuitive, from the most basic perspective, we're talking about individuals that work with non-physical energy, things that are essentially outside of the physical realm. And so that's a really huge catch-all term in and of itself as well. But one of the ways I would describe it for those that are just starting to hear about or just starting to become aware of energy healing or multidimensionality is that when I talk about multidimensional healing, we're essentially talking about non-physical, spiritual, energetic healing that can take many, many different forms in the body. A lot of people have heard about Reiki healing as one of the most common forms of non-physical healing, but we're at a stage of our human consciousness in which many different frequencies, all sorts of ancient knowledge are returning on the earth plane. Extraterrestrial knowledge is now showing up within the strands of our DNA, a whole series of things that for a lot of us on the earth plane, we have not been trained, they have never been encouraged, they have never even been acknowledged as real. And so, you know, it's kind of a roundabout way to answer your question, Laura, but I regard multidimensional healing as everything that occurs outside of the body and also within the body, but from a non-physical perspective. And so that might make it more complicated. It might answer the question. But for me as a practitioner, I guess one of the easiest ways to understand it is that we basically work within the spirit realm and not only healing the physical body, but the emotional body, the spiritual body. And, you know, to kind of also open a huge can of worms, a lot of the extraterrestrial and the non-physical beings that are also interacting with us on the earth plane are also participating in that healing process. And so I know that was a big mouthful. I hope some of it makes sense, but
I love your big mouthfuls. It totally makes sense. And I just feel it's so refreshing when you talk to somebody that really speaks the same language. It might be kind of new languaging for people, but I feel you put it so well and it's very easily digestible, even for people that might be new to this. So, you know, many people right now are talking about NTT attachments and maybe like false channelings, AI interference, implantation, and the whole concept of transmissions and the word, we're calling it shacking. And I think people know it's like it's similar to the shed in your backyard. You guys can,
yep.
Yeah, I'm trying to keep my channel here.
Totally.
Oh man, we're live. As a person who deals with this every day though, what is your viewpoint on this? Are they attaching to trauma mostly that you see? And I'm kind of familiar, well, I'm very familiar with this field, but it's always good to just, you know, have people hear, you know, your perspective. But what would you say the nature of these attachments are? I mean, are they related to implants or trauma or both? Or how can you kind of explain it all? Yeah. And your thoughts on what's currently going on with the you know what?
Oh, totally. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Perfect perfect time for code speak. But I would say, first off, what is happening within the layers of the non-physical body? That's actually a really good question. And I'll start out by saying there are many, many thousands of us on the earth plane that are coming to these understandings. And so I think what I present here today, for those of you guys that are watching, is really just an additional viewpoint or just my understanding of what's happening. And so what I've been observing since I think about 2017, when I sort of launched into this work full time, was that there are key areas of human energetic anatomy that as we go through what we may call this great dimensional shift, which for those of you guys that are not aware of that's what's happening, all you have to do is look at the insanity outside in the world, both inwardly and externally, and you're going to see just the great levels of change that are taking place. And so on a separate and also interrelated level within the human body, we have a series of what we might call organs, energy centers, channels, all sorts of, well, I'll just say it, literal portals and gateways to other realms that exist within the human body. And so one of the greatest, or I think one of the most fascinating things about our life cycle here on Earth right now is that we are coming to the stage in which those gates are opening up. Those frequencies are available to humans on a greater level. It's part of sort of the planned passage of what happens when we move through these dimensional shifts, but it also comes with a great choice. And so right now, what's happening on the earth plane with respect to implantation, entity attachment, all of those negative energetic manifestations, well, first off, they're absolutely real. I know that's always kind of a fun can of worms to open up when everybody in the spiritual community talks about entity attachment, but it's literally real. Now, the weird thing about it, though, and I say this as a person who does this sort of work every day in the clearing and opening of non-physical anatomy, but as a person that does this every day, we also find that the majority of what people are perceiving right now, as whether they be entity attachments, implantation, frequency interference, a lot of it is born from our own trauma that lies dormant and unexpressed within the body. And so one of the really interesting things about this gateway in our consciousness is that we're in a stage in which your dormant trauma within your body can actually metastasize, draw in, or create what some people call a bait frequency. And so what that does is that will draw those feelings, the thought forms, and in certain cases, actual entity attachments toward you. But one of the things that I like to kind of convey as a person that does this professionally is that, you know, a lot of people have heard me say this, and I will say it again. One person's reptilian attachment or implantation is another person's childhood sexual trauma. Another person's, you know, alien implant is another person's, you know, past life death cycle or trauma or thing that occurred. A lot of those things are interrelated. And so I think one of the things I enjoy doing when we come into these interviews is beginning to unpack or discuss it from a little bit of a different perspective, because a lot of people right now are saying, you know, all I do is, you know, watch somebody's video on YouTube, or I listen to this radio show and I get implanted, or I get affected by this entity, or, you know, whatever it is. And what we're coming to understand is that there's a myriad of ways in which we're interacting with that energy. And, you know, not to go on a crazy long rant about it, but for those of you that are becoming aware of the non-physical forces, or especially the darkness, because for a lot of us, the awareness of multidimensionality comes in when we start to become aware of the darkness in our world. And so if you're seeing it, if you're feeling it, if you at times feel weighed down by it and don't know what to do, the reality is, everyone, and I know not everyone likes to hear this, you are in the right place. That is exactly where we are supposed to be right now. And so you could call it, and I'll sort of pause after this. I know it's a long-winded one, but you could call it, and this is a crazy thing, but almost like another puberty cycle that humanity goes through at a certain stage in which another chapter or period of growth happens. And so just like in regular puberty, it's insane. It's crazy. And, you know, I don't know if that answers your question or makes it more complicated.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, it's great. So
yeah.
Oh, I love it. I love it. So when we look at implants, so there's ethereal implants, right? And you're referring to some of those. And then there's the kind of implant where one might be taken up on a ship or abducted or dealing with some sort of lab or military thing. Or, I mean, how can you help us to maybe understand implants and what happens when one is implanted? Do they get like voices in the head, or do they just get, I mean, like, how does one normally react? Maybe a more conscious person would notice a foreign object or a foreign frequency, and somebody else might just be controlled by it. Or how would you help us understand?
That's a very good question. First off, I would say implantation as a term is just, it has so much energy and so much mystique and so much disinfo kind of frequency attached to it that for a lot of people, it's kind of a misnomer. And when we are implanted by another person's energy, it's not so much that it's like a device or something that they'll stick in your body anymore. What it really is are thought forms. And a lot of what I encounter as a professional energy practitioner or intuitive is that a lot of the implantation cycles or frequencies that we receive are born from thought forms, things that are highly crystallized or polarized by our emotion, meaning that you in your own emotional state may convey a very public message in a heightened state. And what that does is that causes the emotional energy in the thought form to carry forward into other people. And so people with very open barriers or almost, well, to be honest with you, there's chi gates that are opening within the body that allow us to use or perceive energy on a different level. For those that are going through that activation process, they will receive that thought form, they'll receive that emotion, and it's sort of kind of a complicated term, but it kind of metastasizes, meaning it turns into something else. It grows and begins to sort of fester into thought forms, influences. In certain cases, it'll influence addictions, emotional behaviors, sexual behaviors, one of the most common ones that we see affected by implantation. But what it really is a form of non-physical energy inside the body. It can come from people, frequencies. We could even say certain types of injections that people receive at certain stages of their journey could also be causing a similar thing. But by and large, implantation is done through thought forms, sharing of emotion and energy between individuals more so than anything else. And
so would you say social engineering, Mockingbird media, and just all the different tactics that they use in order to kind of conquer and divide us is very much the knowledge of this and how to kind of implant the populace to spread sort of the mind viruses to keep people going down a trajectory that isn't authentic or a part of their greater soul or spiritual path, would you say?
Oh yeah, absolutely. There is a process of frequency entrainment that has been taking place for multiple decades on planet Earth. Many people in different, intuitive or energetic positions have often commented about it, but it is an ongoing entrainment process that is designed, as we all know, it's such old news now, but it is literally a mind control inoculation process that takes place with humanity over a multi-decade period in which our energy is being hijacked. And it's spoken about on such a level now that everyone's like, yeah, we know. So it's like everyone within our community knows, but not everyone knows what to do about it. Not everyone knows the steps or the things that we can take to begin to mitigate or to, protect against that energy. And so anyway, I even lost the essence of your question there.
I'm asking questions almost for ones that are sort of new to this, but I know that this is what we've been exposing and working with for a very long time, very well aware of these dark technologies. The dark technologies are very ancient, impacting the planetary grid network in order to waft off those sort of like abilities to put us in reversals and stuff like that. And yes, and lots of different sort of elements to the whole implantation thing. And so I guess a person would be vulnerable if they have like sort of trauma or low self-esteem or they're running kind of fear. And that's why I make, the fear tactics in order to create like a hospitable terrain for like Archonic or implantational sort of, they almost, you have to create the terrain for it to be successful, right? Like through fear tactics and manipulation, narcissism, is that like?
Absolutely. Well,
like vampiric, parasitic.
Yeah, what I have seen, I would say, as a person that does this every day, and I say this all the time, it's kind of cheesy. As a person that does this every day for better or worse, I say that very carefully because, you can literally do something 1,200 times. Doesn't mean you did it right. It doesn't mean you did it well. But, after a time, you will begin to experience many different patterns, many different, repetitious behaviors within the human body. And I think that the things that people need to be made aware of from a very basic perspective when it comes to implantation and energy attachment right now is that where do they hold on into the body? How do these energies hold on? Well, for most of us, it is within negative emotions. And so for some of us, that's so simplistic. They're like, what? Are you telling me that's the actual frequency? Well, yeah, most of us, the most prevalent emotional condition in the body is a set point. It creates a thing that we call energetic pH value. And so it has a huge effect on what we draw in. And so what people find is their emotions change, their thought forms change. And over time, what we find is that there's certain channels in the body that begin to get blocked up. Namely, and some people out there who are watching this, you guys can start doing research on these if you want to learn more about them. But right now, the Earth Star Chakra is incredibly important. It's an energy center underneath your feet. And when people are beginning to be affected, influenced, or otherwise, we could just say attached by non-physical or foreign energies, whether it's from other people's emotions or frequency interference in the world, the Earth Star Chakra right now is one of the most vibratory places on the body. For people that are here watching going, wait, so what is this Earth Star Chakra thing? What is that? It is an energy center that exists outside of the human body, underneath the soles of your feet. Often we could say about 3 to 6 inches, sometimes more based on your levels of connection. But what some people will call it is sort of like a grid attachment point, meaning that the human energetic body has an attachment point, kind of like where you'll plug in your phone, you know, that little place in the bottom. And for a lot of us right now, we're being very influenced or affected by energy waves and just people in the world, because it's like that little tether is not fully connected. And so how would you know if the Earth Star Chakra for some of us is out of whack or not connected or not aligned? We'll have problems grounding ourselves. We have problems with discernment. We may find it very difficult to hold on to one static worldview. Our information, our influences will constantly change and cycle. If we go into public places or we're around huge groups of people that are stuck in an emotional wave, if the Earth Star Chakra is not connected, we cannot ground or release certain types of energy. And so a lot of people right now are very affected in that energy center, and it's leading them to be influenced, just overly attached to energies. Stuck in the past is another one. People will literally get stuck in a persona from, we'd say, about 2 or 3 years ago, because there's about a 2 or 3 year cycle within certain areas in the energy body. And so anyway, I know that's kind of a long-winded explanation there, but it really does tie into energy centers in the body and our awareness of those. When we have awareness of them and begin to clear them in a different way, a lot of the symptomology and the craziness that we're experiencing, whether it be through the current mind virus, whether it be through the inoculation that's happening, whether it be through a million other sources, when we're able to be cognizantly aware of those energy centers in the body and clear them, we stop being under the control, or we stop being affected as heavily as we were before. And anyway, I know that was a lot. I don't know if it answered your question.
Oh gosh, no, I love it. Seriously, because I have a strong understanding of it, but the way you put the words together and the way you describe it and how fluid and articulate you are, I mean, it's wonderful. I can just sit here and listen, and I'm sure people are getting a lot out of it. And I talk a lot about the mother energy, the anchoring of the mother arc energy, and how, I mean, this planetary body is really guiding us in this ascension process. And all these different things that you're talking about are ways to disconnect us from this very, very important, relationship, wouldn't you say? And like the stargates and the this particular Earth star that you're talking about is like this great activator that's helping us to upgrade, and to me can help us to be that override frequency to these darker, forces that are looking to play on our lower emotions. And so this is, would you say, like kind of like the root system and how we really connect to the earth core, like the heart of the mother? I mean, not separate from the father, not taking away the divine blueprint of the masculine and feminine. I mean, that's what it is. Yeah. But there is a mother vibration that has sort of returned in this ascension window that is giving people the ability to really awaken and activate. Would you agree?
Oh, my Lord. Yes, absolutely. Thank you for mentioning that once again, because that was actually something that I was like, oh yeah, I want to talk about this with Laura, because I've noticed that has been a focus of some of your work in talking about the mother arc, or the energy that's rising up. And it's funny because from a separate perspective, and granted, there's maybe a few people that watch your channel that might be vaguely familiar with me, but for those that don't know, I'm very anatomical when it comes to my understandings of energy centers in the body. I am the least astrological professional intuitive there is. I mean, purely, I don't even know what the signs are, and I never ask people's birthdays. But what we do is we look at the energy centers and the channels of energy and the way they're moving within the body. And so you said a very important key word. You said upgrade. Which is a literal thing that is happening, and it applies directly to what we would call the mother arc energy, what some people also call the divine feminine kind of maternal aspects, or sort of the galactic flow that's returning. And what we're seeing, or rather, I will say, thank you, what I am seeing in that area is a difference between the right and the left side of the body. Now, as a practitioner, what we'll notice is that For many people, the left side of the body is regarded as the female or the mother side, and the right side is the male side. What we're finding is that, number one, a lot of people on the earth plane have that flipped now. It's flip-flopped. The left side is male side, right side is female side. And so along with that comes interesting polarity changes within the human body. And so what's happening is there's an upgrade process that will oftentimes correspond with one side of the body or the other. And a lot of the people that I'm seeing will have weakness on one side or the other. By and large, tremendous amount of people have weakness, maladies, certain issues on the left side of the body. And so what we've come to the point of understanding is that when we begin to treat structures, anatomy, or blockages on the left side of the body, it has an ability to upgrade the human energy system and put us into a greater level of contact with what some people call the mother ray energy, the divine feminine aspects. What happens is that's one of the primary, what I would say, pre-installed blockages within the human energy system. And this might be an even weirder tangent I'm about to go on, but a lot of people right now are experiencing a phenomenon. It's such a funny term. Some people have heard of it, called J-seals. Other people call them, get ready, crucifixion implants, which is a fun term, opens the door for all kinds of speculation. Another one, even better, you'll hear them referred to as death seals, which is, that's always a fun one to dive into. They're all essentially the same things, but what we find is that there are standardized, pre-installed energetic blockages within the human body. Where do they tend to go? On the left side of the body, usually in one or multiple of spots. There's usually about between 7 and 10. And they affect very specific things in the body. One of the most common ones seems to reside in the back, left side of the neck in the back. There's another one in the pineal gland. And what they do is they divert human consciousness energy in the level to which we can connect with those ancestral aspects, whether we call it the galactic mother arc ray or, the father side. I can't remember the name of it in the moment. But what it does is it causes levels of blockage or separation within those frequencies. And so I know this is a very long, convoluted explanation, but one of the things we're seeing is that there is a splitting that is occurring between those sides. Now, it's something that we've known about for years, and so, all kinds of ascension terminology, but we are now seeing that upon the rejoining of those halves of the body, and I can tell you pretty much exactly where they rejoin, is that people are receiving an upgrade. And this is something that I think is native to every single human being that goes through the path of awakening with cognizance and awareness, is that certain aspects of themselves will awaken, new abilities, new awarenesses, new understandings. And so I know it's a long road, but I think it's directly related to the return of the mother arc, mother ray energy that you were talking about. So
right. So
I hope some of that makes sense.
Yes. But you're talking about some sort of like switcheroo. Is that because of integration of polarity, that the yin yang, that there's an understanding of like it's more able to work together rather than, but then you mentioned something about separation. So I just want you to kind of jump into that.
Yeah, totally. I know that's very complicated. So there is, number one, a flip-flopping that is taking place within the male-female aspects. We are seeing at the same time a frequency shift within another area that has a lot to do with the flip-flopping of genders, the way those are changing on a seemingly organic level, or our understanding of it. How there's like a great sort of, there's a hormonal shift taking place. A lot of people are changing genders right now. And so that is actually evidence of the shifting between the male and female sides of the body. And so what you're going to see is it manifesting in different areas. Those that are very deeply entrenched in the distorted third density frequency, you're going to be observing them go through some weird process of like this gender fluidity, androgyny shift that we're seeing on a greater level, which is a literal agenda. It's also a little bit part of a natural progression. So there's the artificially induced version of it, and then there is also the energetic version of it that takes place within the energy centers. And so there is a concerted effort on the earth plane with the sort of interference and what some people call reversal technology with the substances that are being placed in the body right now, willingly, is that what they're doing is they're causing the further split of those centers in the body. And so people that are cognizantly aware right now can begin the process of reconnecting the male and the female aspects of self. And so that I might just be restating what I said before.
Oh, no. And I just to clarify, in case anybody kind of, and just, wanted to just kind of like put a little bit more focus on that in case people were like, wait, what did you mean by that? I mean, so yeah, there's the dark agenda part of it, gender confusion and distortion and the way they're targeting our kids. And then there's the the kind of the healing and the rehabilitation from like Saturn moon matrix patriarchal programs and things that people have adopted through the programmings and distorted archetypal overlays that they've been pushing upon people for so long. So there's that sort of upgrade and healing process. And this is the difference between an artificial timeline and an organic timeline. There's the authentic shift that is changing our energy centers. And then there's the artificially induced one, which you're saying is the one obviously creating more separation. And that if we can consciously focus and bring these forces together, we're really experiencing an inner divine union of our masculine and feminine that are working in harmony, constantly like conceiving better realities than the one we're being handed, would you say?
Absolutely. And you said it even better than I was trying to say it, you know.
No, I love the way you word things. I much better than mine, but anyway.
Yeah, here's the really interesting thing about it. And I know we're like in the super deep end of the pool, so a lot of people that are watching are gonna be like, wow, what's this crazy man talking about, which we can explain in a moment. But if there are channels of energy within the body that you guys can learn about right now, whoever's watching out there and like, what is this guy talking about? He's talking about male, female, gender switching and energy, frequencies, right, left side dynamics in the body. And a lot of people will be like, what? But here's one of the things you can start to learn about that's going to help people join or reconnect the separated halves of themselves, whether it be, male, female, whether it be emotional, whether it be physical. And those splits will show up in a number of ways, but start learning about the meridian system. The meridian system within traditional Chinese medicine, through my understanding, is one of the absolutely most powerful circuitry systems in the human body. And if there's one energetic system right now that we can learn about that's going to empower us, create discernment, clarity within the human body, heal our emotions, and yes, get ready for a loaded term, everyone, even create reverse aging processes in the body, of which I am a direct living evidence of. The way that we begin to tap into those energies is by learning the meridians. And so in particular, there are 2 meridians in the body right now that are incredibly active, very much within the multidimensional training program that we're creating, but also in people in general. So you guys can Google these and look at them on your own, but it is the governing vessel and the conception vessel. Within Eastern spirituality, it's called the Shushumna. There's other terms for it. Other people call it the Hara line. If you want to go to another school of energy medicine, you call it the Hara line. Other people call them the central channels. But for those that are interested in figuring out how to join or reconnect those aspects of the self, that's really where it begins, as the primary supply lines of energy in the body. So, yeah, I hope that makes sense.
Brilliant. Yeah. And it seems, and it corresponds to the planetary grid network, and this whole ascension process is getting that circulation flow in order to, wouldn't you say it naturally sort of has an effect on the grid network? It's sort of like, people do call themselves grid workers, but a lot of it has to do with your own, healing of the blockages and the things that are affecting the endocrine system that block, the glands, which to me seem to correlate with stargates, that the earth responds to us if we can take it upon ourselves to do the work within ourselves to heal that energetic system that you're talking about.
Oh, Lord, yes.
And then the Chinese medicine with the elementals, understanding we're elemental beings. So yeah, what are your thoughts?
Absolutely. And there was even something that I was going to grab onto there for a minute. Like, that moment where you're like, okay, here's something to say. And then it literally was whisked away. But yes, absolutely. There's
I hope I didn't cause that. But
oh, no, it's totally cool. Like, I love it. It happens all day long. Anyone who knows me and seen me on lives, they're like, oh yeah, totally. It's totally cool. But yeah, it's part of the great upgrade that I think is going on the earth plane with respect to people right now. And that said, I'm going to mention one other thing. If there's a way that people right now can tap into the frequency of grid work, because that's something that you had mentioned. I think a lot of people are becoming more aware of things like grid work, things like energy healing, things like, shamanic practices, divination. We're trying to understand and develop our psychic skills on a much greater level. When we talk about the process of grid work, for a lot of us, it comes from an opening and a tuning of that earth star chakra. We talked about it earlier, energy center underneath the bottoms of the feet. But there's another place in the energy body that is probably equally as active. And this might be a little bit of a long-winded thing here, but when the earth star chakra begins to activate, what happens is we begin to transmit our internalized understanding of our worldview, meaning the timelines that we sort of subscribe to as a multidimensional being. When we are cognizantly aware of that, as we go through the awakening process, the Earth Star chakra starts to activate underneath our feet, and it sends that energy downward into what we would call the crystalline or the Gaian Earth grid, which is a very real thing. It's a non-physical grid that surrounds Earth. And so at the same time, up above the head is kind of like the other pole on the battery. It's the soul star chakra. And so that's another place where a lot of us are blocked right now when it comes to heavy metal stuff, other thought forms. But in order for us to be able to use the psychic skills, or what we might call intuitive abilities that are activating, those are two energy centers that need to be open, Earth Star and the Soul Star. And other people have talked about Soul Star chakra as well, but yeah, in order for us to become grid workers, those are very important places. And then anyway, that was kind of a diversion from what you asked, but
No.
yeah.
And sorry, I thought I had the camera just on you.
Oh, it's totally cool.
Just walked in, and I never want to, distract, but no, I'm digging this so much. You have no idea. I
totally
want to
cool.
do this again too, because there's so much to talk about. So I just want to kind of go into like the focus on memory recovery, understanding past lives or timelines. We got that as a theme for this particular show today. Is there anything that you feel people need to know, and what's your perspective on this as far as like past lives and timelines and how we can actually shift and alter timelines? And I think in the times that we're in right now, people are like really want to hope that we are still capable of doing that, and maybe you can even go into the concept of bifurcation and what you're seeing in the world today. I know that's a long-winded question.
Oh no, I do the same thing. Like I'll be like, here's 10.5 questions all in one, grab onto whatever you can. I do it constantly.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, yeah.
Right. We communicate in a very similar way.
Oh yeah, totally.
Go ahead.
First off, I would say, because this is always such a fun one. Everyone talks about, the bifurcation of worlds, the new Earth and the old Earth, and pretty soon, guess what? Pretty soon it's going to happen. It's about to happen. I swear to God. Solar flash. We're going through. I'll be in the new Earth. Get ready. Here comes 5D. That's just a really, really common understanding right now. And I might be a little bit awkward in that, as far as I understand, you guys, we are literally in the new Earth frequency right now. For those of you guys that have been waiting for this thing to shift and the Earth to open up and we go into a light body, the reality is we are living in that process right now. And it's not a flash of an eye. It's actually a lifetime. It's a lifetime of experience that we go through, which facilitates this great shift. And so, by my understanding, we have already experienced the shift into the new Earth. But one of the things that happens when we go through a dimensional shift, and this is something that, myself and many other professional intuitives have seen, is there is a great adjustment period that takes place, a period that what we might call a time in which many different clashing timelines or realities will be existing all at the same time, in the same place, in the same room, under the same conditions. And so by my understanding, that is the hallmark of the dimensional shift. And what it really is a choice. And, maybe I tend to oversimplify. There's a few people out there that know me will be like, yeah, you just oversimplify it. But we do, because for a lot of us, and this is also reflected in the Law of One and a number of other texts, is that there is a choice that we make to align with a certain worldview or a certain outcome. And so when we talk about timelines, that is essentially a vibrational wavelength of experiential energy that we will choose to tap into, much like a song on a record, much like a radio station or, a radio to a certain station that we will tune to. It's entirely choice related. And really right now, you guys, it is possible to be existing in a reality. I know this sounds crazy to some. It is possible to be existing within a reality in which a lot of the madness on the earth plane is completely separate from what we are going through. It is entirely possible. Myself, I'm a little bit there, but what you'll find is that you can become almost untouched by a lot of this madness. And it really is a choice. There's a choice, there's a development, there's certain things we have to do. But yeah, anyway, I'm going on and on that.
No, please do. Well, I think the hard part is it's like we are existing in another dimension, or I don't see it as like one dimension. We're multidimensional, and I kind of like refer to the tree of life and the full spectrum of frequency that you're very much discussing and bringing light to and working with. So that integration of polarity and becoming whole and grounded and expanded and sovereign and all these different things, and you might not word it the same way or but we do speak a very similar language. What do we do though about the grief that we're experiencing when friends and families or friends and family members are taking the, you know what, sign language here. And there's this concern that, wow, we're splitting off away from them and they're going to be, you know, massively compromised. And we almost have to let go of them. And I just can't rest with that. It's just not okay. I'm not going to, because I feel spirit holds dominion over whatever mark of the, you know, what, do you feel that this energy signature can be changed if a person went into it well-intentioned, didn't fully have the information, has a good heart, is a good, you know, person that loves their family? I mean, how can a good and decent person who got played and tricked be, you know, shoved into a dark hell world because of a decision that was made out of survival and a decision that was made through trickery and deception? I mean, how do you reconcile that and make sense out of that?
Wow, very, very good question. Oh, Lord. I think that at this stage of our journey on Earth, and I say this very, very delicately to everyone that will be watching, I think at this stage, our journey on Earth, we can understand that there are truly no mistakes. I know that's always a loaded one to hear. What do you mean? Nothing happens by mistake? Absolutely. Nothing happens by accident. At least when it comes to the most momentous or the great changes or the things that we experience alongside others that define our existence. And so what I'm seeing right now is just a tremendous amount of fear frequency around what some people will call a segregation idea, that we must separate, that we are no longer safe amongst a certain section of the population that's taken, you know, whatever that is into the body. And people talk about the process of, you know, the shedding of whatever is inside the body and all of those things. And here's the thing, it is absolutely real. Those are, you know, it's not fake anymore. That process has been well documented in other forms of medical procedures and certain things that have been placed in the human body. So we know that anything that is taken or introduced into the human body on some level will be released, whether it be through the skin, the liver, the kidneys, intestines, a host of areas in the body. And so what happens is, yes, the frequency is emitted from the human body, but I might be a little bit idealistic, Laura, and I believe that part of our journey here on Earth as humans is to come to an understanding that we can adapt and overcome to absolutely anything that is thrown our way. We have done it for thousands of years. And I think no matter what is leveled at humanity at this stage, we will have the opportunity and the ability to overcome it. It may take multiple generations, but I've also seen right now, as a person that sees a lot of people individually, I have worked with people that have received that, you know, we'll call it the mark or whatever it is, and people that haven't. People even within the spiritual community that we know firsthand have actually received it and come to me for guidance and looking at what's happening in the body. And what I have seen is that, yes, it is a very damaging frequency that has a huge effect on the human body, but we have the ability to release it. There's nothing that the human body on the earth plane right now cannot overcome. And I know that's such a loaded statement, but I don't see a need for us to segregate. I do not see a need for us to physically separate or create any additional layers of just tension between people that are choosing a different timeline choice. In fact, my opinion is that we need to absolutely allow those individuals to make that change and continue to reflect the values and the understandings and just the stuff that we're working on within ourselves. And I know that's an overly idealistic, you know, outlook for some people.
No, but that's a choice of frequency, right? And that's part of our creative energy. We have a creative imagination. Are we going to choose the worst case scenario? I mean, it's good to consider the worst case scenario to be prepared, but I mean, to me, all possibilities are open, and that is the power of the creative imagination and spirit and God source and the miracles of so much that we can't explain, that science tries to explain. You know, and the fact that we still meet up and run into each other after so many lifetimes, and we're ancient souls and we've overcome galactic wars, exploded planets, and all sorts of targets. Consciousness to me always trumps it, and it's the override frequency, and I love that term. So if they're shedding this stuff and it's got a negative vibe, or, you know, I almost feel like if they buy into the propaganda along with whatever they're shedding, that's a more dangerous person, because they're in that narrative of divide and conquer, judgment, hatred, and some level of toxicity. But if you're dealing with somebody who made that choice and they're still loving and they're wonderful to be around, I feel like we alchemize this lead into gold, and that we can actually change what they're shedding through what we're shedding, which is love, right? And that's kind of what your words are reminding me of, right? So
absolutely.
Is that kind of?
Oh, no. Absolutely. There is nothing that we cannot overcome at this stage. Yes, that is very idealistic, but truly, I think that we can shift that vibration, and part of us, that is our literal task. There are ways in which we can shift that very, very difficult vibration right now, whether it be something that we take into the body or whether it be the ongoing mind virus frequency that many of us are interacting with. There's a number of ways in which we can help that. Rife technology is one of them. For those that have heard of the frequency-based Rife technology.
And you work with that, right? And yeah, talk about your modalities and yeah, right.
Thank you. Yeah, well, switching into that, I think that's one of the things that people will really need to know right now. A lot of people are talking about, med beds, they're about to show up, or there's this thing that's going to happen, holographic frequency. Don't worry, they're going to release it tomorrow. Here it comes, guys. And the reality is, for many of us, we already have all of that technology available. It is 100% available on the earth plane, but not in the forms, in the packages, and in the overall, we could say, the energetic capsules that we are desiring. And so one of the first places in which we can begin to absolutely regenerate the human body, consciousness, emotionally, physically, is with Rife technology. Some people are aware of Royal Raymond Rife. Decades ago, he created a frequency-based modality that kind of shatters and alters and entrains the human body. It's absolutely proven to work, but it's been very suppressed on the human plane. And so that's one of the primary frequencies that we started working with in the School of Multidimensional Intuition earlier this year. It was sort of a download that I received, and I know this is going to be a winding road, but it came as the result of what I believe to be some contact experiences with a very benevolent group of fourth density beings that some people would call possibly inner earth energies, possible fourth density energies. I'm a little bit of a different being when it comes to ET contact, because none of them ever identify where they are from for me. This is not a factor. I know a lot of people talk about ET contact and they come in and say, we're from the Pleiades or something. And I have never had that experience, but what happened to me toward the end of the year, and also at a couple other interesting intervals, was that I was given these downloads over the past year that said, you are essentially being called to create a multidimensional training program that's going to help create the shift, or at least allow people to create their own version of that. And so what we were tasked to do was to get a bunch of frequency generators together and to begin a multi-month program of entraining the human body on a different level. And so what we're finding is that causes people to open up chi gates, energy centers, thought forms, emotional disturbances, and also physical things on the body in a remarkable way. And so I believe that it's part of the process of, spirit, or the multidimensional human consciousness, giving us those tools that we need to heal our human consciousness without the need to wait on some form of, spectral technology that, number one, because people are going to hear this and go, we saying med beds are fake. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying they are not available and currently being used for those of us on the earth plane on a mass level, but we have a whole bunch of other tools that can do the same thing. And so I know I'm going on and on, but Rife frequency is one of those. And so I think it corresponds with, get ready for an even bigger drop into the woo-woo zone, with actual energetic devices and frequency entrainment generators that exist within what we might call the inner earth. Some people right now are having meditations or out-of-body experiences in which they are connecting with what some people perceive as crystals, stones, even beings that will exist in places down there. And what they're doing is they're starting a process of entrainment. It's kind of like everyone's turning the generators on once again. It's like the energy is activating and people are getting seeded with new understandings, new experiences. And anyway, I know I'm going on and on, but Rife is one of those. And so,
oh yeah, I've been familiar with that. And it's interesting, what you hold like two copper things in your hands and you program in a frequency that has to do with a particular condition.
Kind of, yeah. There's actually a new form of it now in which we are using it on a remote basis, in which we are able to take a bit of a person's DNA and place it within a transmitter. And what that does is, through the process of quantum entanglement, actually vibrates the strands of DNA. And I have tested it multiple times. We have a group right now of 15 people all over the world that are our pilot group in this multidimensional training program. And it is working in nearly each and every case. We are able to now remotely vibrate or create an entrainment process without even having that person there. All we need is a little bit of DNA and a Rife generator. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Well, what I was going to say is I believe that is for many of us the next step toward enhancing and opening up gateways in human consciousness that allow us to just be better at perceiving what's going on the earth plane. That will allow us to, number one, heal the human body, but also heal our consciousness so that we are not getting led astray by a lot of the disinfo, by the transhumanist timelines, by, you know, what some people call, you know, like the medical mafia stuff and all of those things. When we are able to develop and entrain the body on a different level, a lot of those blockages fall away. And so, yeah, I know I'm going on that one.
No, but you're here to go on and on because we love it. Yeah. So you talk about extraterrestrial healing modality known as scalar toning.
Oh, yes.
Is that, what is that? Like, how would you describe that?
Here we go. All right. Sorry, guys.
And then we're going to get into this before we close this incredible institute that he, this training program. I didn't include it in the bio because I knew we were going to make it a big question that we're going to discuss. So go ahead. Yeah. So the scalar.
Yeah. Some people have heard me talk about this before. I'm sorry, there's a little bit of like a delay. I don't mean to talk over you, but
that happens to me too. And people are like, well, you interrupt. And
I know. I do it all the time. So it's all good. Yeah. And so, yeah, scalar toning. I think first off, here's a really cool thing. People can research this. Scalar wave technology is absolutely real. It was first observed by a man named William Clerk Maxwell, probably sometime in the mid 1800s. Everybody can Google that and go down a fun rabbit hole. But in addition to scalar wave technology or just the observation of that tech on the earth plane, there is also an organic frequency that is emitted by the human body. And I was sort of, I wouldn't say entrained to it, but I had an extraterrestrial experience in December of 2017 in which I was taken into what I believe a multidimensional pocket reality, possibly another physical place in which I met a group of beings, very tall, dark-skinned, shamanic, muscular, humanoid beings, and they performed some sort of a ritual with me. I've talked about it in a couple other interviews, but in the course of that process and that experience that I had with these beings, I was taken into a place in which I observed what appeared to be an alien child or an extraterrestrial being a child in this room. And what I observed myself do is go through a healing process with this being. It's a very long, convoluted, strange story that in the course of this interview will be like, what? But what happened to me in that space was that I heard a sound. There was a frequency or a wavelength that took place during this experience. And immediately after I had that experience, I began to mimic it. I began to use that sound. What I found in that out-of-body experience, that when I removed energy from a being in this experience that I had, this sort of ring, it was like a whoo, sort of came out. And so what I found out later on in my own energy clearings, I started using it a couple of days later in 2017. I felt guided to make a weird sound. And for those of you guys that have done sessions with me, you'll know we do a lot of weird sounds and whatnot, but what it is basically a frequency that the human body emits. And so it's been something that I have used in each and every clearing session since then. But what it does is it allows the human body to create a vibration, a vocal or an auditory vibration that has the ability to bloom open, to release blockages, or in certain cases, also a crazy word, to shatter pathogens within the non-physical body on an alarming level. And so I call it a form of extraterrestrial technology because that was the experience in which I was attuned to it. Nowadays, what we do in School of Multidimensional Intuition is actually teach people to create that vibration. And so, yeah, it's a direct example of an ET experience that actually caused me to change a course of my life. And in the process, I understood that experience, however fantastical and strange, was literally real, because what I took from it actually helps people and it really works. And anyway, I know that's a long, one there, but yeah.
No, that's great. I mean, when we think about ETs though, they're a part of our multidimensional body and they're aspects of ourself, it seems, that we're reclaiming, right? To upgrade. When we're talking about upgrade, isn't that the process of going from carbon-based to crystalline and activating the 𝗵𝗂𝗶𝗲 to actually be able to pilot our own UFO ship from our consciousness? I mean, would you say that that's where it's all heading, or being an ascended master again? I mean, we've had to go back to like square one and be little babies. Like, what's going on? Oh, totally. Why did I come here again? Yeah. But would you say, because that seems, when I hear you talk and the kind of connections that you have, is that this is the kind of schooling to help a person to shift from this lower density into the trueness and full potential of what it means to have this biological vessel and all it's capable of.
Oh yes, absolutely. Absolutely. There is I'm going to mention, this is a little bit of a mild diversion. It'll be really quick, but it needs to be mentioned here. There is a wavelength of extraterrestrial consciousness on a 4th and 5th density level that is consciously reaching out to individuals on the Earth plane right now with the express purpose of assisting humans with expanding their consciousness and connecting, get ready for the specific part, you guys, connecting with other aspects of our multidimensional selves in other planets and other realms. What we are going to learn past 2021 and beyond is that the fundamentals around what we understand our experience of extraterrestrial contact are changing. They are literally changing. And so it's not so much right now about us connecting with other identities and other forms of consciousness in, like the multidimensional realms. What we are really doing right now is connecting with ourselves. And so one of the ways people can further increase the level of extraterrestrial contact or even just mystical experiences in the astral realms is by consciously connecting, number one, with the extraterrestrial soul family, but also number two, with a very specific frequency, the frequency of a realm known as New Atlantis. New Atlantis, as a 5th density realm right now, is one of the frequency carriers that many of us are interacting with. And so for some of you guys out there, this is going to be the craziest part of this entire interview, but you can focus on my left eye if you would like to receive a little bit of the frequency from that realm. But what happens is we are existing in the New Atlantis realm right now, and part of our journey with the New Atlantis is connecting with the individuals and the versions of us on the Earth plane. And so for those of you out there that are wondering, how do I continue this upgrade process? How do I continue to connect with the multidimensional higher self? How do I continue the process of expanding and just opening up my own multidimensional awareness? For a lot of us right now, it is by connecting with elements of ourself. New Atlantis is one that has presented itself specifically in our realm right now because it's one of the primary gateways that a lot of us went through in a previous life in which we made certain choices that are now being echoed and repeated in this lifetime. And so for a lot of us, this is a repeat of what some people call the timelines around the fall of Atlantis. Now, New Atlantis has presented itself as one of the options for people to connect with, but that's not the only one. There are a number of other different, what we call frequency bubbles and realms that are popping up. Lemuria, or a new Lemurian frequency, is back, as is what looks like a very, as we know, there's always a dark side. Maybe it's not a dark side, but another polarized side. There is another expanded frequency being emitted from what looks like a number of new places in Antarctica. And I know that's such a loaded place right now. Everyone likes to theorize about it. But one of the things we've been doing in the School of Multidimensional Intuition is going on specific astral travel voyages, moving outside of the body. And what myself and others have discovered is that there is also a separate group interacting with the energies in Antarctica. And one of the things that's happening is they're reactivating pyramid structures that some of the elites have already toured them, they've seen them, but there's a separate kind of section of what's being unearthed down there. And what's happening is there's another series of pyramids that are emitting a new frequency. Well, it's not a new frequency, it's a kind of a repeating frequency, but it is also drawing people toward what we might call the sort of transhumanism timeline. And the crazy thing is right now, it's even easier to connect with that transhumanist frequency that's coming from a number of other sites. There's one in Turkey. I think there's another couple others in the Middle East. There's one in South America. And what they're doing is they're creating this sort of grid thing that's actually enhancing the reversal technology. And so a lot of the things that we're receiving in the body right now are actually enhancing and vibrating with that frequency. Some people are going to do a meditation after this and perceive black pyramids with gold writing. That's a little bit of a consciousness seeding, but you guys will find them in your own way. And when you do, you will notice that there's a whole different frequency being emitted from them. So anyway, I know that's a long-winded thing, but lots of stuff.
Nothing long-winded. It's more like surfing the waves of your words, just like, woo.
Thanks.
So with the breeze blowing, so that's the wind part.
Nice.
Yeah, totally refreshing. So I think people, though, are concerned about imposters or manipulators, the whole kind of problem, reaction, solution. Here, let's mess all this up and then bring in the positive ETs, even though like the MyLab or the Greys or the reptilian agenda set up all these problems, to then introduce something maybe connected to them that's in alliance with this dark agenda to kind of fool us in a similar way that the jab is going to help us with this so-called co-bitch, I call it.
Yeah, right.
So what can people do, though, to increase their discernment and psychic awareness? Because there's a clear distinction between what's authentic and what's true, and what's sort of AI imitator that can really like fool a person and deceive them, like our governments have, and a lot of people. What would you suggest to people? Because the vibration that you're coming in on is totally authentic, and I totally relate. And I've been doing this kind of research, and it totally lines up with what I've come to discover. What would you say, though, to people that, I mean, obviously this show is going to help, but a daily maybe practice. I mean, I know meditation and good nutrition, but I think some people who seem to be in the spiritual community, or some might even call New Age, and we know there's a lot of New Age deception, that seem to have made attachments or connections with those that appear to be of the light, those that appear to be benevolent that actually aren't, that created a lot of following. I mean, how can you kind of like help people to kind of navigate that, so that, to discern disinformation from truth? Because it's really, because it's very apparent you live in the truth frequency. Right. I wouldn't ask this kind of question if I didn't think you were a person of truth.
I appreciate it. I would say, what can people do? First off, honestly, that's kind of one of the primary objects of my mission at this stage. What we do pretty much every day, like I said, for better or worse, is help people reconnect or put back together or clear a lot of that stuff. And what I've found, I'd say probably since 2018, it showed up really heavily is a thing that I call the frequency of truth, which is also, oh boy, such a loaded term, because when we really look at that, we realize that truth is different for each and every person. It's entirely subjective based upon our understanding of who we are and the limits of our own consciousness and wounding. But there is a thing called the frequency of truth. And what it is a sentient frequency of authenticity that people are able to connect with in the energy of the moment. It's a vibratory thing that most people actually feel when we are children. We feel it when we're kids and our stomach gets a little weird and we get these knowings. And so where does that come from in the body? Well, there's usually one place where it kind of emanates from in the beginning. It's the solar plexus. It's why we get strange feelings earlier on. And what happens is, for a lot of us right now, we completely disregard it. We completely ignore it. We've been trained as a population to utterly ignore those subtle signals in the body. And so one of the ways we can enhance our ability to read the frequency of truth is, number one, through a very dedicated heavy metal detox. We've all heard of that. Everyone's an expert now. We all, everyone needs to detox.
I thought you were like blast Metallica and
that could also be it. Heavy, maybe that as well. But so heavy metal detoxification is very important. But in addition to that, because everyone's talking about it right now, there's a million ways to detox heavy metals. But another thing that can be very helpful is to strengthen the human body. And I don't mean strengthen the human body through physical activity or working out, although that's very helpful, but it's through the energy field around the human body, the human biofield. And I have had a dedicated practice of doing Qigong pretty much every day, maybe too much, obsessively since like 2015. And honestly, you guys, for anyone that's watching, if there's anything that you hear me say today, if you're wondering, is there one singular way in which I can absolutely strengthen and enhance the human energy field? It's through Qigong. Qigong alone. There are people in China, get ready for this one, right now walking around who are over 200 years old, absolutely real. And for a lot of it is because they have figured out methods of harnessing and opening up the energetic anatomy in the form of, or the flow of qi in the body. And so Qigong's another one, but also healing the inner child. And I know, it's such a huge checklist, but that is really one of the greatest barriers toward developing and understanding our intuitive abilities. As a person who teaches people to develop their psychic abilities every day now, what I have found is that for a lot of us, those huge bubbles of emotional trauma, especially pre-age 6 child trauma, just early childhood trauma, those are the bubbles of energy in the body that once they are popped, once they are opened, and don't worry, it's an ongoing process for many years that we go through. But when we go through that process, those are the things that just on the other side of them, those are our intuitive abilities. Those are our multidimensional awareness. For a lot of us, emotional blockages are stopping us from being able to experience the frequency of truth. And anyway, those are just a few of the ways that we
right. Well, it almost is a person who might be recovering from a lot of really difficult abuse or bad relationship patternings, that it's almost hard to emerge and want to love again, or when the love is there, it's like there's always these projections and the negative feedback loops of those triggers that keep us Yeah, I want to speak on that. And I could talk to you forever. So I know we probably got
yeah, sorry. I know. We're going on and on.
But anyway, what are your thoughts on that?
There are a couple channels, and these are things that for those of you guys out there that have experienced some of this stuff, or you will get this vibration in your body. Once again, you can look right here to receive an additional level of transmission. And I say that very specifically, Laura, because one of the things I've been tasked to do right now is help people on the earth plane open up their telepathic abilities. Is an absolutely real thing. And so it's just one of the things we can do, everyone. I know it's kind of an interesting diversion. Start focusing at people's left eye. For those of us who are cognizantly aware of energy, that's one of the places on the body you can tap into a different frequency. It is absolutely real. And so there's energy portals on the body that are opening. But anyway, I kind of forgot the essence of your question there.
Me too. I'm just like, wow, I'm about to ask another question.
Yeah, no, please keep going.
That's okay. Good. Yeah, I mean, maybe it's just meant to be left alone. But well, that's what's so interesting about energy centers. And you were talking about meridians, and then we've got, our chakra system. Do you see, because some people are like, oh, a lot of it is implants, Kundalini's an implant, and the chakra, but these are our energy centers. Yes, they're going to change and alter. Don't you feel like they're going to integrate more, and that they are where they are for now, but it's not like evil or implanted necessarily? And what are your thoughts on Kundalini?
Oh, yeah. First off, Kundalini as just a force is rising up on the earth plane. It's always been there, but people just, as we become more aware of non-physical energy, there's a little bit of a 100th monkey effect, because as we become more aware of just those simple terms that a few years ago, people weren't really mentioning on such a great level, just us stating it here is causing people to become more aware and just tangibly aware of the energy flow within the body. And so it is absolutely real. But when it comes to chakras or energy centers right now, we are also experiencing what some people call a compression, which is such a loaded term. What's happening is the energy centers are beginning to compress, to meld. And what I have observed, what takes place as we transition through fourth density, is that the separate makeup of the energy system in the human body begins to turn into what I believe to be 3 primary energy centers, which make up what I believe the basis of the fourth density human body, meaning the non-physical human body. And those energy centers are called the dantians. One's in the head, one's in the heart, and one's in the gut. But to answer the question, which was the earlier one of things that people can do to get in touch or learn about these places in our body that will be holding blockages against discernment, blockages against truth, and blockages against our own individual intuitive abilities. There's certain places people can start to learn about. Number 1, the pericardium meridian. So everyone can Google that. Some of you guys will feel it and you'll be like, yeah, Google that. Pericardium meridian. Here's another crazy one people don't talk about, the triple warmer meridian, all about discernment, all about boundaries, how you receive energy. And then finally, another one, probably, in my opinion, one of the most important places on your body to learn about right now, you guys, the spleen. And the spleen meridian, because so many of us are caught in emotions that aren't ours. We're caught in, certain even physical frequencies that will cause illness in the body. The spleen is so active on the earth plane right now, and people are just caught up in, guess what, other people's emotions. And so I know it's a long-winded thing, but when we learn about the spleen meridian and begin to release spleen energy in the body, we reduce our susceptibility to other people's emotional states. You become much more sovereign, much more aware, and actually your body changes, your skin will change, all kinds of stuff. But anyway,
the spleen is huge. Right? And I'm so into Chinese medicine, and I pretty much memorized the I Ching in high school, just doing so many readings for myself. And I learned so much. It was like the greatest guide. I always had to make sure it was with me. And I mean, something about the spleen, I mean, it doesn't like filter the blood, and it has a lot to do with our red blood cells, right?
Oh, absolutely. The spleen builds blood. It's a filtration device. From an energetic perspective, though, the spleen operates a little bit differently. The spleen is very much like an emotional filtration energy center. And I guess since we're going there, I'm just going to tell everybody here, there is a mantra or a capsule phrase that you can use to open up spleen energy in your body. It's literally real. We use it all the time in our school. And I'm just going to say it here. Some people can use it. It's pronounced 𝗤𝗏𝗏𝗏. And it's an actual thing that you can emit. 𝗤𝘂𝗖𝗄. That will open up and bloom the spleen meridian and just the spleen itself, which honestly causes us to let go of other people's emotions. And you will notice, for those of you guys that are willing to try that, you'll notice that your emotional well-being will shift afterward. And honestly, for some of us, it will affect the entire body. Because notice how much better you feel about doing things you don't want to do when your emotions are sound, right? When you feel good about stuff, you're like, I don't care. I can handle this. I can handle that. For a lot of us, it's spleen energy. So.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah. Gosh. Oh, man. So much about the spleen. I mean, I could go off about my spleen story, but.
Oh, really? Oh, Lord.
Oh, yeah. And oh, gosh. There was something really important I was going to ask, and it just sort of left me. Isn't that weird how that happens?
I know, right? I love it.
So, okay, I think this is it. And then I want you to just tell us about the Institute a little bit more. And I'm sure people are like, how can I sign up? And what, like you're telling us all this and really want to know. And of course, everybody, I'm going to put his links in the description. I'm going to slow down my voice because I'm starting to.
Oh, no, I'm with you.
But
same thing. It's all good.
What are your thoughts? Like to me, when it comes to metaphysics, it doesn't matter if it's coming from a bioweapon. It doesn't matter if it's just, it doesn't matter where it's coming from. It's why is it plugging in? What are we allowing ourselves to be vulnerable to? There must be something deeper going on. So when we look at, I mean, the fact that, the masking is happening, it seems like, truth is a frequency that can help us to upgrade based on all the different things that you're talking about, but that there is a targeting of the blood, reproductivity, of course. And so one could easily deter or determine that that's all about depopulation and sterilization, but the clotting factor and some of these, kind of symptoms, even just the 𝗘𝗶𝗀𝗀 symptoms, like how are you seeing it on a metaphysical level as far as the growth period of humanity right now? And regardless of where it comes from, how can you make sense out of it? Because when we look at an energetic level, which you do, it's beyond just, oh, I caught this because I was at the wrong place at the wrong time and now I'm sick. There's so much more of a big picture to it that makes a person vulnerable. So any thoughts on that?
Yeah. Oh, Lord.
And how the blood, yeah.
Get ready for an oversimplification, everyone. I believe we are living in a time in which the human consciousness is becoming so crystallized and powerful that if you are being told there is a certain thing that will kill you or cause this sort of reaction, and enough people in our earth plane buy into it, it will absolutely happen. And so what that means is that for a lot of us, the act of believing and internalizing a certain worldview or an understanding that's been repetitively blasted into our body is literally creating reality. It's creating reality. And so what can we do about that? How would we change it? I would say continue to be cognizantly aware of the ways in which we are constantly being pulled away, detox the body, heal the emotional self. Just like you, there was a whole other thing I was going to say there and they were all, and they pulled it right out. So maybe that was just good enough. But I think from a multidimensional perspective, if you are seeing this insanity, it is literally why you are here. If you feel weighed down or sort of, beaten down by the madness in the world, it's because you have an ability to do something about it. Each and every person on the earth plane right now, in my opinion, this is not I know a lot of people say this, but the earth is not a prison planet. It never was, it never will be. But for some people, it will be very much perceived as such because we will be locked within elements of ourself. And so, I think we are at the stage in which this duality and the insanity is literally why we came here, which is also why I truly believe this is the best time we could have ever chosen to be alive on planet Earth. This is the literal number one time to be here. And so I say embrace it, heal the inner child, detox the body, learn our energy centers. Anyway, I'll go on and on.
No, we should cut that little piece out and then create a little app that attaches to people's alarm clock. So that's the first thing they hear when they wake up in the morning. Because what you just said is just like, yeah, that's such a great way to start the day. It's like a cup of coffee or whatever you guys, anybody out there drinks. And actually there's a lot of good coffee that is not have the weird stuff that I'm actually a distributor of, but I won't go there right now.
Oh, really?
But, I mean, oh yeah. With the Ascent Nutrition, and people can find the link in the description. But no, I mean, that's incredible. I mean, the prison, to me, especially that's lighting up right now, is that people are putting a prison around the cocoon because they're so afraid of death that they're not willing to emerge. So they're literally allowing a jail cell to hold a person stuck in the cocoon to the point where it begins to disintegrate and they might not be able to make it. When really, if the limitations of the mind could free itself, and that, you know, sovereign approach and free thinking ability was illuminated, we would be like emerging to the next level. Like you said, like we're going through this massive puberty, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and your institute has everything to do with helping a person move through these initiations to remove the illusion of the imprisonment that they want to infect our creative channels with, so that we believe it or we enable it unconsciously. But in actual fact, you know, to me, it's a great initiation, and that everything that you're working towards and helping people to achieve is a much more comfortable journey through this very, very difficult initiation, coming from a great level of mastery that obviously has bled over from many lifetimes. I mean, wouldn't you say, does that metaphor kind of make sense?
Yeah.
Where, you know, it's like we're literally about to become the next level of advanced humans. And they're like, no, we're stunt your growth with the fear of death. When, how can we possibly transform if we're too busy fearing death? Because to transform, we have to embrace the death of something, right?
Yeah. Oh,
what are your thoughts on that? And then I'll close and I'll let you go,
totally.
even though I could keep you on the phone or phone.
I think if there's
an interview live to hello everybody.
Totally. I think if there's something that I would give people within that area is that, maybe this is a little bit of a platitude, who knows, but I would say try to remember that you are a multidimensional being. Believe it or not, we chose to incarnate on this earth. We chose our parents, we chose our lives, we chose many, many momentous occasions that are going to occur and have already occurred in this physical lifestyle cycle. Nothing that we do on planet Earth, at least through my point of view and through what I have been shown in my journeys, none of it is by mistake. We come here specifically for this purpose, for this reason, to go through these initiations. And it sounds once again like an oversimplification, but to remember that no matter what is taking place on the Earth plane, that the moment contains love. And I believe that when we are able to continue to harness and open up those areas of our body that are pressurized, that are hurt, that are angry, that are wounded or victimized, as we continue through that unpacking process, we become less and less affected by the madness, by the transhumanism, by the reversal technology, by the, the powers that were, whatever kind of keyword you want to attach to it. I think understand that this is what we came for. I think that there are a lot of people on the Earth plane right now that are coming to these understandings in their own way. We're living in a true golden age. Not everyone is able to recognize it yet because we're just at the beginnings of it, but it is literally a golden age of human consciousness in which many teachers, many individuals, in my opinion, every single person, if you're one of the people on the Earth plane right now that found this broadcast, that found this show, I know it sounds cheesy, but congratulations, because you are one of the people that is able to perceive a very narrow band frequency, meaning that you are ready for this message. And so what do we do with that information? We begin to enhance our multidimensional intuitive abilities. We have, an educational program that we've been working with called the School of Multidimensional Intuition. You guys can find it on YouTube. You can also find it at my website, rememberyourmission.com. But our actual mission, our goal, or my goal as an individual on the Earth plane right now, is to help our collective enhance, to remember, and to realize that you are a great healer. You are an ancient mystic. You're a shaman. You're a spiritual warrior. You're a teacher. You're an intuitive. But here on the Earth plane, those things were not encouraged. They were not fostered. They were not grown within us. And so what are we doing? We are seeking those people. And so I find they find us inevitably. So anyway, I hope that makes sense.
That was beautiful. I mean, some teachers or whatever you want to call them out there want to create like sort of dependency, or I'm the teacher, I'm the guru, I'm the master, I'm the healer. And you guys are, I'm going to
thank you for saying that.
Be the one that takes care of you or teaches you a few things. But this is like ultimate empowerment, because these are latent, dormant abilities. I mean, our junk DNA holds this great treasure of all these lost aspects of self. And that's why it's so interesting with your ET contacts and what you've experienced, is because it reaches into places that they don't want us to go. But then there's that whole kind of having to anchor it and ground it. And there's, a lot of psychic attack. And I literally could talk to you forever, but I mean, anything you want to share about like some of the interferences or attacks that you went through, and anything show up lately with other people's stories about their latest ET contacts? But starting with you, like, I mean, to be able to embody what you are embodying and create what you're creating. I mean, it probably wasn't very easy. You've probably been
Lord,
like
no.
dealing with a lot of swords and attacks.
It has been a multi-year process that if you would have told me this is what I was going to be doing in 2014, I would have destroyed it. There's no possible way. How could I possibly do that? And so for me, it has been like an organic unpacking and just sort of riding the waves of what we're being called to do next. And, you know, I think that also I am an example of a process that many people on the earth plane are going to go through in the coming years, in which we transform, we transition away from previous personas, previous lifestyles. We begin to enter a whole new wave of existence. And I am deeply blessed because I was one of those people on earth who, like, when that change came for me, it was like I turned off one switch and I turned on another one, and somehow spirit facilitated the immediate transition for me into what I'm doing now. And so, you know, our task is to help other people find and make that change. And what we are finding, though, is that there are lots of people that create dependencies. There are people that will, you know, show up as a spiritual teacher and, you know, join my thing and pay me this every month and be a part of this thing and only use our techniques and connect to this energy. And, that's well and good for some of us, but you guys are going to find, for people within the spiritual community that are doing real work, that the focus is going to be on empowering you, helping you understand your way, trying to figure out what your intuitive ability is. And for me, when I started this work, I tried to use other people's techniques. People said, just make an orb of light and do this and that. And I was like, but how? How? Yeah, I'll do it, but how? And so what we find is that everyone has their own way. And so it's really about individual exploration. And yeah, you guys can, you can do that through us or many other people on the earth plane. But yeah, thank you.
You know, it's very rare that I talk to somebody that, you know, gets that. Because I feel that way, and I'm not like, you know, oh, I've got all the answers because of that, but it's like, because I don't have all the answers for you, I know that it's important to hold space for you finding that within, and that my intention is to be able to, you know, do that for people. And to me, man, I mean, I'm proud of myself for knowing the importance of that. And I'm just blown away by just your extraordinary, like, service to humanity, and how, you know, your awakening, that we use that term all the time, was to your greater potential. You were willing to drop all these, you know, other things that sometimes a starseed or whatever you want to label it, they feel very ostracized, misunderstood. I don't know quite what your story is, but kind of like living with the coping mechanisms instead of, you know, stepping into the real role. And you're such a living example of, instead of, you know, just staying stuck in the, I don't feel like I belong here, or I'm having a difficult time with this. And again, I'm not trying to project what your story was, but when that, you know, switch flipped, you know, all of a sudden it's just like, it's a whole other thing, because you're giving respect to maybe an inner tension or an inner calling that you can't quite put your finger on. You took the risk, you jumped out of the airplane and you trusted that parachute would open, and it's beyond open. It's like mystical freaking.
Yeah. I actually,
you know what I mean though? Like, I mean, was it that much of a leap?
I will tell you straight up, and I know we're going on and on, but I'm just going to tell it to you straight up. There was a period in 2016, other people have heard me say this, I was going through such an expanded wavelength of contact and experience that there was a stage in which I was doing Qigong in my backyard in like July of 2016, and I became aware of a multitude of beings literally standing right next to me, feline, insectoid, humanoid beings, and there was such a tremendous transmission of energy that I dropped to my hands and knees in the middle of my backyard, and I was weeping, crying, I was sweating, energy shaking. And what they told me was, in that moment, they said, Matthew, you have a mission, and it is time to remember. And I knew in that moment that there was no way. I was like, what is this? How do I do this? Where does it go? Is this even real? Why am I shaking? Why am I crying? What does this mean? And what they showed me was that there was a path that had been laid out in front of me, but that it was a path that was going to be born from a leap of faith. And for me, that leap of faith was so huge that it caused me to leave behind my entire life, my career, the house that I owned, the marriage that I had, everything about my life, to pursue a different goal or a different path. And I think for me, it was because I chose to be of service. I think that I was so willing and so open and maybe so broken at that stage that I was like, oh don't do anything. You know, I think at times spirit shows up and they're like, really? Well, let's put that to use. And so for me, it was a snap. And, you know, granted, I still had to deal with all the third density stuff. Other people heard me say this, but as soon as that happened, I'm there, hands and knees in my backyard. And, you know, my wife at the time walks outside and she's all, hey, so what do you want to have for dinner? You know, and I'm just like, you know, bam, right back in the real world. And so, anyway, you know, for me, it was a bewildering process, and our journey now is helping you guys figure that out for yourself. So, you know,
well, totally, and holding space and pursuing great tools and modalities, but really coming from, you know, the intent and the power of the fact that, you know, us as humans, we're the advanced technology. And when we're aligned with the right forces, you know, that are connected to our higher mind and how that connects to source, it doesn't have to be somebody else's way. And this is what, you know, you really are helping people to step into their authenticity, sovereignty, and truth frequency with great ways to do it that don't try and do it for them or tell them, you know, this is how it should look. You know, those that appreciate human sovereignty and authenticity and a person connecting with their own truth frequency, to me, are the greatest healers and teachers out there. And it's been such an honor and blessing to talk to you. And anything you want to share? I know I was gonna almost go to Camp Disclosure, and you got that coming up, and I'm gonna be so pumped to see you guys. So yeah, anything you want to plug or anything that we didn't share that you want to say that is like you weren't able to say? And we'll close.
Totally. Just real quickly, because I know we've been here for a while. Thank you for everyone that will eventually stay with us through this long-winded.
And thank you for your time. I hope I mean, obviously I'm the host.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. So yeah, anyway, events coming up. Yes, thank you very much. First off, I believe we have an event coming up July 21st to 25th. I believe it's in Sedona, Arizona. The awkward thing is I can't remember the name of it, but it's put on by Alexis Buck and Jace Kulesa. Some of you guys knew who they are.
Is that connected though with Saeed or the vibe?
I do not believe so. I think it's an event that they're putting on themselves. That's in Sedona on about July 21st. We also have a really cool thing called Camp Disclosure, a really amazing event coming up in Georgia. I believe that's August 26th as well. And so that's a really good opportunity for people that want to be part of a live in-person workshop that I'm doing, which are really, really fun. Then additionally, we have another event, probably one of the most important conferences, one of the best things I've ever been a part of, and that's called Starseed Adventures. That's also happening in October, and that one is in Sedona as well. So we're going to be doing a couple events in Sedona, one in Georgia this year. But aside from that, for people that want to connect and learn about the process of transmission, multidimensional energy healing, for those that want to experience a true energy clearing process where we actually open up layers of the energy body, a lot of people describe what I'm doing at this stage. This is an awkward thing. Get ready. We've been awkward all day, but what it has been described to me recently is a little bit like a combination between a psychic reading, a shamanic clearing process, and a psychic doctor visit all in one. It sounds awkward, but I've had to own it. And it seems to work in amazing ways. So people that are interested in understanding an entirely different level of energy clearing and opening up channels in your body that facilitate you to be able to do this for yourself, you can reach me on my website, rememberyourmission.com, and also on YouTube. Probably the easiest way to watch our workshops for free and a bunch of other stuff on YouTube at the School of Multidimensional Intuition.
Well, I'm going to miss seeing you at some of these things, but I know our paths are going to cross in the physical, but we can always say hi unless I completely annoyed the crap out of you, but I don't think so. Maybe? No, I'm just kidding, because we're total, I feel like a spiritual geek.
Oh, totally. No, we're on the same page with that. I truly appreciate you. And I know I've talked at you so much here today, but let me just say.
That's why I invited you on. Are you kidding me? You were brilliant as always.
Yeah. A lot of people in this community don't know, but you were one of the first people I ever did energy work on. And I know I said this in our very first interview. You probably don't even remember, but right when I launched into this, we met at that secret space program conference, strangely enough, where we met Tony Rodriguez and a bunch of other interesting folks as well. But a lot of people were gathered at that place out there in Mount Shasta in 2016, I think.
No, I remember we talked about this.
You were one of the first people. So I say this every time, Laura, but thank you for opening the door and being an authentic representative of this multidimensional community. I mean that with true sincerity. Truly. Thank you.
Oh, and I feel the same way towards you and other things that you were willing to do to call out some of the things that were happening in the community with the greatest of integrity and good intent in order to like heal a lot of fractures that took place that I think a lot of us are still processing, but you know, you took the initiative on that. And I know we could just probably spend a lot of time just like loving and honoring each other, but you know, we love and honor all of you. And you know, Matthew's an incredible person, and all your words were just absolutely brilliant. And I'm going to replay it and just, it's music to my ears. It's just
maybe
like,
I will as well.
And you're always like, is that a long-winded question? I'm like, what?
Totally. Yeah. Thank you.
But that was great. And we'll be in touch. I'll put all the links in, everybody, and lots of stuff to look forward to. And like you said, the agenda is separation, segregation, right? When we look to integrate polarity, even with what seems to be the dark side, you know, it's not dark when it's coming from well-intentioned people. It's dark when it's coming from the evil controllers that have set us up with this sort of scenario. And love is going to transform this, and we're all going to be okay. So rest assured, and thanks for reminding us of so many amazing things, Matthew.
Thank you. It's truly an honor, Laura.
Oh, awesome. Okay. Bye.